movies, and more podcast. In the next hour or so, my co-host Lei Xing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners and viewers, welcome back. We ask that you smash those subscribe and like buttons so you don't miss anything from us in the future. Lei and I are two of the most knowledgeable people in the world doing this, so please help us get the word out about this show to others. My name is Tu Lee. I am the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.substack.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. A Thursday evening, Lei, can you please, or Friday night, Lei, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, TGIF Lei, Beijing TGIF Lei. This is your co-host Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review, and this is episode 217. So actually it's been a rather muggy, soggy, rainy Beijing the last few days and going into next week, which is kind of this sentiment around the industry these days, because we've had the Tesla earnings come out, and then we had that, I think you tweeted about it, the Dongchedi ADAS test that has been the talk of the industry or been on the news constantly the last few days.
Let me stop you there, Lei.
Yeah, that a little bit.
My first question that I've gotten this from several people. Have you heard of this media outlet? Since you're a media veteran in China, do you know the people running it? Is it legitimate? Any biases that you think? So let's start with this. Can you tell us what happened? So here's my tweet to kind of set you up. I tweeted that combine Motor Trend, Road and Track, Automobile Magazine, Car and Driver, all these road tests into one.
Consumer Reports.
Consumer Reports. Inject some steroids, and you have the test that which media outlet? Dong something? Which media outlet was it? So
it might be my answer. So apologize.
So I will hand it off to you. Combine all these tests with Consumer Reports, and you have this mega intelligent driving / ADAS test. You take over. Just start describing this test then.
So Dongchedi, the name literally means the god of knowing cars, Dongchedi. Believe it or not, Dongchedi is a entity under ByteDance. And for those that might not know, Sequoia Capital invested into Dongchedi, I think a few $100 million. And there were talk about somehow Dongchedi, Sequoia Capital.
But you're talking Tesla about the Chinese Sequoia Capital.
Yeah. Well, Hongshan Sequoia, yeah. And somehow these are connected also with Tesla. So when you talked about the bias, one of the things that there's been a debate about Tesla getting high scores, rave scores, was that kind of bias. It's something worth pointing out. I can't say for sure whether that is, but the results, basically what happened was this Dongchedi, they have been doing this since, I think, 2020. Every year they would bring dozens of the latest smart EVs, including some ICE vehicles, to test out all kinds of ADAS scenarios, emergency braking, how these vehicles will perform. And they actually, I think they pay probably a lot of money to have a stretch of 15 kilometers of expressway to do this test. And there were In one of the tests, there were about 36 vehicles, all sorts of the latest and the greatest smart EVs, including obviously Teslas. And one of these tests was basically you have a car in front of you, suddenly veering, merging to the left, and all of a sudden there's a stopped car. It's a dummy appearing in front of you. And the point was to see the capability of AEB, or actually the emergency maneuvering capability. And what happened was that Tesla, the Model X and 3, and there was, I think one of the Neo models, one of the Way models, and I forget the other one, but 36 models, basically 30 out of the 36 models failed the test, and including ones with LiDAR. So this has been kind of debated on the last few days in China, throughout the industry, throughout the media circles.
Right.
So that's basically what happened. And even Elon Musk, he tweeted, one of the Sawyer, I think, who tweeted about this, that Tesla passed the test, even though it used vision only, and actually a 2023 Model X and Model 3, which has a older version of
With the software.
The so-called FSD, right, software. So that's basically the background. I'm kind of interested to know your take on this. I can share mine, but yeah, I mean, I think there's comments from both sides of the fence. I think some saying, whether there was bias about, Tesla getting the score, because there was even talk about the way the vehicles kind of moved over, allowing a longer distance to brake, things like that. So it's still being debated right now, I think, in the industry.
First of all, I think it's great. And to your point, 15 kilometers is a long stretch of highway. 15 kilometers is around 8 miles, I want to say, 8-ish miles. So not insignificant. 36 intelligent driving systems, some from the same brand. I think that's pretty significant. And it just reflects China, how they tend to go all in when it comes to almost anything. And the amount of effort, the lift in order to be able to do this. And I've only gotten a day to really chew on things. So that being said, a lot of people had asked me if these were legit. So I'm still trying to figure this out myself, because I wanted to get your objective opinion, and I didn't really want to ask you through WeChat DMs. I wanted this recorded. But
yeah,
we knew that Tesla's system is good. Okay. I didn't think it was going to be first and second place, to be quite frank. And we're talking older versions too. So that gives me pause a little bit. But to your point, I'd still like to learn more before I say one way or another it was skewed from a testing standpoint. But nonetheless, 36 cars. So let's be clear. The Model 3 and the Model X were first and second place, was it?
Yeah, I think so. First and second.
And there are videos online that you can watch. But I knew that there was going to be a huge uproar in Chinese social. Have any of the Chinese brands, chimed in and said, unfair or not accurate?
Aito has. Aito had 3 vehicles in the test that all failed. And Aito basically said no comment.
So Aito is Huawei, effectively. And Huawei has been one of the most vocal brands versus
Yes. Yeah, so the surprising thing, I think, it was not so much that Tesla won with the vision only. I think the surprising thing was rather these latest and the greatest that have the LiDAR, that have all sorts of 30, 33, 34 sensors on the vehicles. When they launch these cars, how they were communicated the capabilities of ADAS, the so-called the capability, point-to-point capability of the ADAS, even some of the AEB functions. But I think this was rather
AEB is emergency braking, automatic
yeah,
emergency braking. So just
but
for
this
our
is
audience.
the other point was this is quite extreme stress test of the system capabilities that normally the automakers and the brands will not show you. They will only show you the instances where the system performed well. So I
But
think
this is the
that's
precise
the central
reason.
debate.
This is the precise reason that we know level 2, level 3, point to point is not ready for prime time. Because we can
And
expect
this
that.
video,
Go ahead.
so this video came out right at the moment when the Ministry of Public Security Transportation Bureau chief commented. What he basically said was intelligent or so-called smart driving in China is not autonomous driving. This is reported by the media quite a lot, right around when this video came out. So when I said earlier it was a rainy day day and week in Beijing, this is kind of pouring some cold water on the industry about safety, about the capability of over propagandizing or over marketing of the capability of ADAS, as well as users abusing the systems. We talked about this earlier in our earlier episodes.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Should I be excited or afraid of AI? The answer is yes, it's both.
Things are going to look so different in the next couple years. You will not be ready for the disruptions that are going to come.
I'm Jeff Nielsen, host of Digital Disruption, the go-to podcast for technology leaders.
Our generation's conflict, I think, is going to be emotional, not economic.
The companies that are going to win are the ones that have a couple of characteristics.
Stay ahead of the curve with Digital Disruption, available now on your favorite podcast platform.
Lei,
Yeah,
we've experienced this driving hundreds of miles in two vehicles. They're generally very safe, but there have been moments that you and I have experienced together in the vehicles where it's like, not sure what the decision was, so we took over. Now, hasn't happened a lot in the test cars that we drove, but also AEB, I want to separate that from actual intelligent driving. And another really important thing to point out is that you can have 30 plus sensors, but this is where software comes in, sensor fusion comes in, because if it doesn't give you an accurate picture in almost real time, that's where you get these delays in decision making. So you can have as many sensors as you want, radar, sonar, LiDAR, camera. And if it can't build an accurate picture and the software can't make the right decision, this is what happens.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing was the Xiaomi vehicle actually started pressing the brake, and then actually the system exited, which basically means asking you to take over, which was even more surprising and kind of points to what happened in that accident that killed the 3 young ladies earlier this year. So I think my personal conclusion is that in that specific test scenario, Tesla won. But if we can't conclude for 100% that the safety of one is better than the other, I think to me, you mentioned about our trips, long trips, the last 2 years of having had NOA on expressways for extended period of time. The key words that come to mind is one, common sense.
Hours, not minutes. We're talking hours of NOA.
Yeah. And one, common sense, and two, trust. We never took those NOA for granted because we had to be paying attention. They did allow it was less tiring when you're, if you had to put on the brake or the gas pedal. And then when do you achieve that trust of the system that you know that it will do what the Model X and the Model 3 did? I think is trying to more educate the consumers. The capabilities are not what you think they are. And that ultimately, going back to what the director of the Transport Bureau said, is that you are a driver ultimately in any of the systems on the market today. Ultimately, you, the driver, are responsible. I think that's the point that we stress here.
And that there seem to be a few EV makers, XPeng, BYD, that are now pushing forward with certain use cases that will allow for level 3, which clearly puts the onus and responsibility onto the EV maker.
I mean, BYD announced something a couple of weeks ago, right? We talked about it.
The smart parking.
Yeah.
So Lei.
So I think that the conclusion is basically take any of these tests with a grain of salt. For those ones that did not pass, that does not mean that. I mean, are they bad? No. Is Tesla that much better? Probably, maybe, but at the end of the day, you have to be at the current stage. I can only trust myself as a driver. And I can't put the trust on the vehicle yet, at least not yet. That's. I
think another way you're saying this is it reinforces the fact that level 2 is a supervised system. And in order to be completely, or in order to mitigate any type of risk from the system, you have to be alert as the driver at all times.
Yeah.
So one other thing,
yeah,
Lei,
I mean,
I should mention, I was part of an analyst call with General Motors a week or two ago. They had invited me to talk about their mineral strategy, their battery strategy. So got to learn a little bit about that. I told them that my lease ends on my Ioniq 5 at the end of this year. So what shows
Already?
up a week later? Well, it was only a year. But what shows up a week later? A Cadillac Optic. So I am driving a Cadillac Optic for a week with Super Cruise. So I haven't been able to stretch Super Cruise's legs that much yet. But overall, in the couple of days that I've been able to drive the Optic, very impressed. Full charge, around 325 miles. It's around the same size as an Ioniq 5, maybe a little bit smaller. Overall, I'm pretty impressed. And our friends at Auto Pacific, Ed Kim, Robbie DeGraff, Paul Waddy, they told me that that's probably one of the best deals right now for EVs and, bang for your buck kind of thing. So I'm considering an Optic as a replacement for my vehicle. The unfortunate thing is that if I want to lease an EV, I probably will have a lease payment for 2 or 3 months because the subsidies end on September 30th. So I'll have to get a lease a couple of months before my Ioniq 5 ends, which is unfortunate. I'll be double paying for cars, but it is what it is. What else is on your mind, Lei?
Well, I mean, we talk about Tesla versus GM. They both had earnings this past week. Tesla, I mean, right, speaking of pouring cold water, all the numbers were there. They were down. We do know that finally this so-called Model Y S, we have the Model YL, not the Model YS is coming. S meaning small. That'll be interesting. I think something to look forward to. The other one is autonomy. Elon saying that by the end of this year, half the population in the U.S. will have access to the so-called robotaxi. Interesting to watch and see whether his what the expectations will be. If he's just juicing it or that's going to happen, I think it's quite significant. In China, I think Tesla still. I mean, this Tesla again, this Dongche Di. I think at least from a marketing wise for the average consumer, it's huge, right? I think all over the world, if not in China. And then GM, you talked about Cadillac, right?
Mm-hmm. The one thing, Lei, that I
just think
maybe you could give us a little bit more understanding on, especially on the Chinese media and Chinese social, Xi Jinping got out front this week or last week and started talking about how at the provincial level, they need to stop trying to incentivize the EV makers to build more. Can you talk a little bit about that? What you've heard, what you've read?
I think speaking of it, I have a few Tesla salespeople. When you go into the showrooms to check out the cars, they add you on the WeChat, but it's their work WeChat, and they keep sending information about in Beijing. What you can do is, if you want to get a Tesla and enjoy actually out of Beijing extra incentive, those are ending. Many provinces are ending. So I keep getting those messages, basically asking you to, same as what's happening in the U.S. is that September 30th, the $7,500 credit ends. So please buy, right?
I'll experience it soon enough, but let me ask you, does there seem to feel like some finality to the price war, or does it just seem like it's pausing for a little bit as we get out of summer?
I think the price war is just being masqueraded.
Right
now. I mean, we saw the launch of the Leapmotor B01. I tweeted that we're dangerously close to getting EVs with LiDARs under maybe 100,000. Is that a price war? I think so. BYD launching the Sea Lion 06 yesterday. 150,000 RMB around. I mean, that's a big SUV. So I think there's ways. I mean,
so I'd written in the newsletter that the price war will never go away. It'll lose some intensity, but not likely until early 26, because China just doesn't automatically not compete. The price war has bled into food delivery, Meituan versus Alibaba versus JD.
Yeah.
A lot of different industries.
I was just talking about that over dinner with some of my daughter's kindergarten parents, and about JD going into Waimai, about Ele.me providing extra incentives. I ordered Ele.me, which is, are you hungry? For those that don't know. I ordered a couple of coffees on Ele.me from Luckin, and after incentives, it's two.
Like 40 cents. 40 cents. Free rides for like a week.
It's starting to happen all over again in the Waimai, the food delivery sector.
So peeling layers of the onion back. These things happen, okay? Price wars in a familiar frame from people that have lived in China, that have experienced China significantly, especially over the last 15 years, is a race to the bottom. Regardless of sector, if someone's making money, more companies will enter, and then they'll create a price war, whether it's solar panels, whether it's steel, whether it's food delivery. What's really important here is, and Bloomberg had written about this, is when it's state-owned enterprises, the central government has a lot more control with reducing overcapacity, closing factories. But when it comes to EV makers, battery makers, some tech consumer products companies, they don't have control because they're private enterprises. So at least not direct control.
I think case in point, you mentioned about battery makers. I told MA, Richard Yi, he put out a Weibo today basically saying that I told M8, the battery electric version, the CATL is the sole, the exclusive supplier. And he says something in Chinese called 无混发, which means we're not launching this model with the mixed suppliers of battery suppliers. CATL is the only supplier for this. It's kind of a selling point these days somehow. And that's kind of the price war. And, if you come back, you go into the showrooms, the biggest rivalry right now is the Li Auto i8 and the Envoy L90. And if you talk to these showroom people, they will have tactics of saying something bad about the other competitor. And we're better. That's all part of the price war. It's not only reflected in the prices. It's more of the bloodbath that we kind of talk about everywhere. Competitions everywhere.
More that Huawei and CATL have a partnership with Chang'an to build the Avatar. So it would make sense that Huawei would endorse CATL.
Yeah, I mean, it's called the CHN, right? With Chang'an, it's Chang'an, Huawei, and
Yep.
Ningde Shidai, which is N, but it's CATL. CHN also means China.
So what do you think about, I think the biggest news last week in the West was Uber, Lucid, Nuro. Did we talk about that last week a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, that's it's interesting. It's almost like Lucid got a lifeline from Uber.
Nuro
That's how
too.
I kind of look at it. Yeah, Nuro. Yeah, and it's interesting that now we have the Baidu RT6, the US version of the Baidu RT.
Except it's not a $35,000 vehicle.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's still going to be over 100,000 easy. One of the things that I wanted to also talk about really quickly was Japan has a trade deal with the United States now. The Detroit 2 and the UAW aren't very happy about it. And I just wish that they would get to building cars that American consumers want. There's never going to be this Goldilocks moment where the market is just right. They just need to put their heads down and start grinding and building and designing better cars, man. That's what's going to win. That's what's going to allow them to win.
Yeah. And the other thing we should talk about is, speaking of American, Faraday Future announced the FX Super One, which is heavily being ridiculed by Chinese media because it's basically a Wei Gaoshan MPV.
Yeah.
And right now it's not confirmed, but everything is pointing to being Great Wall Motor being one of two kind of not the contract manufacturer, but bodies supplier, if you will, of these upcoming Faraday Future vehicles for the US market. And one of the things that people were talking about was this image on the website of Faraday Future of this Super One. It literally had the Gaoshan in the Chinese. So
they should have photoshopped it out. They didn't even Photoshop it out.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing, speaking of that, the other thing I tweeted about this Beijing ending the completely ICE vehicles from ride-hailing platforms. The sub-branch posted something about it, and then they posted something else saying, no, that was a mistake. So,
oh goodness,
that's why we try to not to jump into conclusions too quickly. Otherwise, it becomes folly. And one of the follies that's also happening is, I don't know if you heard, that BYD was supposed to sponsor the Chinese Football Association. But there are reportedly some other automakers against that. So it looks like that will be off for now. They were supposed to invest or sponsor 75 million RMB for a 5-year term, but it looks like BYD is kind of under pressure from competitors to not do it.
But
they just sponsor Inter Milan, right? Inter Milan.
Yes.
So
I'm sure that costs more than 75 million. So.
The thing behind this is because the Chinese men's football team suck. It has been the joke for many years, right? So I don't know.
My good friend and your good friend, Mark Dreyer, who is a sports journalist and specifically covers the Chinese sports, all kinds of sports. He's a Brit. lived in the United States, and he wrote a book that kind of chronicled the Chinese sports with a heavy dose of Chinese soccer or Chinese football, and kind of how Xi Jinping really, really leaned into trying to make the Chinese football national team one of the most competitive. So for those that are interested in learning more about how the Chinese sports scene has evolved, then look up Mark Dreyer, Dreyer. He has a book that's really, really good. He's one of those encyclopedias of knowledge. He's a really good dude. So yeah, that was pretty cool to see BYD sponsoring Inter Milan. Does that mean that BYD is going to be on their jersey, the kit?
I'm not sure what the exact arrangement is, but it's a partner, right? Partnership.
Yeah. So.
But it looks like BYD also announced something with the Chinese youth football. There's an entity that they're working with. So who knows? But it seems that after the Euro 2020, was it Euro 2024? Yes. The Copa America, I think BYD is pretty big into football or soccer sponsorships now. Kind of worked out well for them.
Also FIFA, Olympics, things like that. Lenovo is also a huge sponsor of the Olympics and stuff like that. So what'll be interesting is in 2028 when the Olympics comes to Los Angeles with Lenovo as the cloud sponsor. So how's that going to work?
I definitely think BYD will be a part of it by the time LA Olympics comes around.
Yeah, man.
Somehow.
I don't think there's any doubt in my mind.
It's too big of an opportunity.
It would be a terrific coming out party for them. And there are sharp elbows because when the Olympics was in Japan, Toyota was the vehicle sponsor, I believe, and they wanted to have autonomous shuttles and things like that. Well, we're going to start to see on a global stage as global events occur in the United States. We'll hear a lot of behind the scenes lobbying and movement, but and we'll cover it as long as we can confirm it's not just some crazy. But so,
and then speaking of going international, Xpeng started CKD production in Indonesia already. Quick.
These CKD, for those that are kind of new to following automotive, they're basically knockdown kits, and they ship in a big box from China to Indonesia, and then in Indonesia they put them together into the final finished good vehicle. So that's for tariff purposes, that's for trade requirements. So the bulk of the work, component manufacturing, is still done in China, and then they'll ship a big box to Indonesia. And so Indonesia is not a huge passenger vehicle market, so we're probably looking at a few hundred CKD a month for the first few months, or tops at most.
Yeah. And
so, Lei, that's all I have. So I'm going to go to questions.
We do know that this September, there's the 80th anniversary of, what's the word, the fascist. You were here, right? I mean, there's going to be a military parade.
Yep.
I don't know whether that's causing the
Chang'an is going to be very, very limited.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to go to questions. So Riz, thank you. Riz called us legends. Nice, dude.
TGIF.
So, and then Riz has another comment. How they pulled together that is remarkable. He's talking about the big test with 36 vehicles, SVX Cross.
I mean, that involves heavy investment. I mean, not a typical media outlet can do it unless you have the coffers. I mean,
So, Lei, from your experience with it, what area does L90 need to improve on for its intended customer group, if at all? Is embargo over? Big L90 video.
Oh, right.
From your experience with it, what area does the L90 need to improve on for its intended customer group?
Well, they're going after the auto customer group. There's no doubt about that. Families.
Do you think it
2
compares?
kids. Sorry?
Feature and quality wise, do you think it can compete?
It definitely competes. Feature, quality, pricing. I will say that I actually got to check out the i8. The interior, although as weird as it looks, the interior, if you know about Li Auto, it's a typical Li Auto interior, but I would say it's more a tidy, cleaner look interior, which I think might be, I think it's slightly better done than the Envo L90, but if you think about pricing, I think at the end of the day, the pricing, I think, is the best. Pricing, maybe the power swapping is the biggest killer here.
Right.
In terms of drawing customers. New M8 is 370,000 expected pre-sale pricing. The Li Auto is 350. And the Envo L90 with BAS is below 200,000, as we talked about.
What's crazy,
We've
Lei,
seen the videos of these cars being shipped and produced. Speaking of the 800,000s Neo produced was an Envo L90 just yesterday, right?
So I was there for vehicle number 500,000.
I will say this, that the Envo L90 is a vehicle that cannot fail. That's how significant it is. I will say that based on what I've seen and experienced.
SSJJ005 says some EV fans are expecting big number from L90, like 10,000 a month. But there's no way pure EV 6-seater SUV could sell more than 5,000 a month. Only EREV 6-seater SUV exceeds 10,000.
That's a very good point. But yeah, I mean, but if you look at Envo trying to achieve 20,000 sales, I'm expecting L90 to be a big part of that. And you can kind of do the math of the possible numbers that it can get to.
Lei, here's another question. Riz asks us. You read it. You first.
Oh, I just saw the BYD question.
Yes.
I mean, I'll say this. BYD will try everything to get there.
I don't think they're going to have any problem getting to 5 million this year. If we saw export numbers into Europe, those are growing. There are some Chinese brands now and Chinese products that are in the top 10 in Europe. So that is going to be a pretty reliable market. And it's the third largest market in the world, unless the EU is going to increase the difficulty of exporting to Europe, number one. Number two, what's important is that this week, the EU Commission is now in Beijing, talking with Xi Jinping. So here's a few more questions.
Yeah.
Although I don't think the L90 will sell 10,000, it has to outsell existing Tang L, C16, and new i8, LS9, and X in order for them to say it was successful. You agree with that?
So I didn't catch the last part.
Let me reread it. Although I don't think L90 will sell 10,000 a month, it has to outsell Tang L, C16, the new i8, LS9, and 9X in order for them to say it was successful.
So here's another way. Basically, let's talk about i8, because i8 is the direct competitor and the biggest rival to me, maybe also in the industry. That from Li Auto's perspective, I don't think they will, because they learned from Mega that the i8 is not something that expect huge volumes anyhow. So Envo L90 beating the i8 is something that's kind of a foregone conclusion. It should be. But I just think among all of these, at least the pure electrics, Envo L90 has the best, is best primed to do well at this point.
Easy indicator is all of these vehicles are new. I don't think the X has started shipping yet. But how quickly do they incentivize sales of the i8? Because Li Auto's trying to stay above the fray. L90 really put pressure on all the incumbents that have these large SUVs, six-seaters. Now, with Xi Jinping in the background saying, hey, let's end this price war, how long is the L90 going to be in the market without a battery under 200,000 RMB before i8, before all these other companies create incentives or price reductions to try to combat that low price? I think that's going to be an easy indicator.
Yeah, I think also for the L90, I think remember the bigger picture is the break-even target by the end of the year. And L90 doesn't have to sell a significant number of volumes. We have to look at, they're also launching the new ES8, which is actually, believe it or not, being produced at F3. F3 will SOP in September in Hefei already. I mean, NIO has the capacity. I'll tell you that. Sydney Roosters. Okay.
Riz, I'm going to ask you,
L90 that just have to execute well for what it's trying to do and not worry about competition. I think that's the bottom line. And this round of planning and pre-launch was rather different than what happened with the L.
Riz, I'm going to ask a friend to ship me a Sydney Roosters jersey with the BYD logo on it. And if I get it in the next few weeks, month, I'll wear it on the show. Last question.
Well, that's the question on the BAS network. Well, I mean, that's the $1 billion question, right? Because they've signed up partners. Remember, I think right now NIO and Li Auto NIO should be ahead in terms of supercharging network, not the battery swapping. But Li Auto is rapidly catching up because they're launching these I series and they're closing in on 3,000 supercharging networks or stations in China. That's pretty fast. And they're betting on the 10 minutes you get, 500 kilometers or something on the 5C charging network. We have to see what the partnerships with NIO materialize versus the competition from CATL adding on their own. So that halo effect is not something easy to reach, I think, at this point.
Here's my 2 cents.
I mean,
This is going to be unpopular for the NIO fans, but when does swapping become unnecessary? Because with mega chargers, we're talking 400 kilometers in 5 minutes. And so you and I did the Gen 3 and Gen 4. That was 3.5 minutes for a new battery. Now, there's a burden that NIO bears that other car makers don't, and that's the whole battery swapping station investment. Now, to Lei's point, they are one of the largest charging infrastructure owners in China, NIO is, which is pretty funny because they also have to spend a lot of money on battery swapping systems. So I feel like the law of diminishing returns, as the mix in chemistry changes in batteries, the battery management systems are better, charging speed is better, the resiliency of the battery pack due to cycles is also improved. And I think long term, swapping has its place, but maybe on the commercial side. And again, this might be an unpopular take. I don't know if we need swapping if I can charge to 75% within 3 or 4 minutes.
Well, we know that the government encourages battery swapping. We know that CATL is in on the game. We know that they're building tens of thousands. But at the same time, we have these competitors, Li Auto, saying, we're going to do it on our own. We have the Tesla supercharger network, the BYD with the flash megawatt charging. Currently, from our experience, you tell me if I'm wrong. Sure, I mean, we have the trip battery swapping. It's sweet. Saves time. Definitely. But does that mean that it has the complete advantage? Alluding to what you may have not said, maybe not, right? But that's the kind of the dynamic that we're seeing. I think this strong versus the strong, that it's not to anyone's advantage at this point.
So
At least it's
I
not
think
that clear.
I think if we look at NIO as charging and swapping, this is their advantage. Okay, it's not just swapping. It's that if we wanted to, we could have gone to a charging rest stop and charged it without a swapping station. So I think
and many of the
that's
swap
their
stations
advantage.
have chargers next to them. Yeah.
So, but again, the mega chargers are very cost prohibitive right now from that standpoint. So NIO is still going to have a significant advantage on swapping if it allows them to get vehicles like L90 undercutting the market by several thousand RMB or several $1,000s, then the advantage is still very clear. But I don't know, outside of Xiaomi, none of these other players that we've talked about, whether it's Aito, whether it's NIO, Xpeng, have had runaway hits with their product launches. So I don't know if it's fair for the L90 to have that type of burden on it, especially because there's going to be some competitors in the 6-seat SUV BEV market segment.
Yeah, I mean, L90 is so far the most hyped up NIO model. I mean, period.
And it's not even a NIO. That's a lot of pressure, and pressure bursts pipes. So hey, Lei, that's all I have. So want to end it?
Yeah, sure. Same here.
So everyone, thank you again for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Please stand by on X. We'll give you an update on what we're going to do next week, since I'll also be in China. So have a good weekend, everyone.
Have a good trip. Looking forward to seeing you back. Bye-bye.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Li, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.